New update? New city! This is Liberty Prime with Base Filters, and welcome back to Shadows of Doubt. Woo. Love that fresh update smell. But to get everything out of the new update, I'm gonna need me a new city. Which incidentally, I've been meaning to do ever since that recent update that added dancing to the game. So here we go. Here's how we generate a new city. Oh, and if this is exactly the kind of guide that you needed, please do leave a like on the video and please subscribe to the channel for more Shadows of Doubt. First, we're going to need a new game. And we're going with Sandbox. The tutorial is worth doing at least once, but honestly, it just doesn't give you a really good picture of a typical case. And sure, we can select a pre-made city, nothing wrong with that, if that's what you're after. But the problem is, they are all extremely medium. City size, medium, 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 and medium. But personally, I want one that's very large. See, I like very long games, but I don't want to know instantly who done it because I've already met everybody and already have their fingerprints and all that other stuff. And if I want a nice big city, instead of a tiny little village, I gotta make it myself. Me? Do things the easy way? Nah, that doesn't sound like me at all. But before we go any further, I got a disclaimer at you just a little bit here. Just because you're the one creating the city doesn't mean that it's not still keeping a ton of secrets from you. For starters, you won't have the foggiest clue from the city editor what shops are where. Yeah, you will have a general sense of the city's layout, sure. But apart from the city hall and a park or hotel or that kind of thing, you won't have a clue where to go for anything else until you're actually in the city that you've built. You won't really know what the city looks like either. You won't know if there'll be any of those cool-looking Chinatown decorations, or if so, where they'll be. Other than the buildings and the streets, you won't know what anything's named, and you certainly won't know where the vents are, or if they're all connected up properly. You won't even be able to be sure that there are staircases in all the right spots. You might be completely locked out of a location you need just because you can't get there from here. What kind of weird generation mishaps have you guys encountered when you were making your own custom cities, huh? Let me know in the comments. Oh, and most annoyingly to me, personally, you won't know where those stupid walls are going to show up. I cannot stand those walls. But if you generate any size city other than the smallest size, you're going to get at least one wall. So unless you're building a small city, don't bother regenerating over and over again to find a city seed without walls, because they don't exist. They're put in on purpose to slow down your navigation, which is exactly why I hate them so much. The best you'll be able to do is to find a seed where there are relatively few walls and where they don't interfere too much with you getting around. So let me know in the comments what your particular pet peeve is. And while you're down there, please hit those conveniently placed like and subscribe buttons. Anyway, my point is, be aware of the limitations of the city editor. You won't know what shops are where, you won't know if all the shop types are even there, you won't be able to see any walls or any decorations. You just plain won't know what you're actually dealing with until you finalize the city and explore it yourself. More about that a little bit later. So let's click on Generate City and get this puppy started. And a while ago, I went through and generated city after city until I found a city seed with the fewest possible walls. So I'm going to click on Custom for the city seed and plug down that city seed. If you look at the numbers and letters after this last period here, that's the city seed. So we're just going to paste our custom city seed right here, and voila! Now do feel free to pause and copy down the city seed, because as soon as I start messing around with the city, the game will no longer let me share it, sadly. There's probably a mod for that, I don't know. Y'all let me know about that too. Y'all, please keep in mind that whenever you edit your own city, you're making your city seed unshareable. But if you've got a great city that you want to share, just make yourself a save as soon as you pop into the freshly generated city, because that is shareable. Oh, and since I'm going for very large, we want to make sure that this is very large. And now all that's left is to name our city. There we go. Alliteration is fun, isn't it? And one last quick check. I'm ignoring the random buttons because I've already made my choices, but y'all feel free to hit them if you want. And And we definitely want to make sure that the city editor is on, because, well, that's kind of the point of this whole video. Alright, everything does look proper and perpendicular, so let's continue on. Now, this is a screen that's very easy to just skip through, but you might want to hold on here for just a second, because there's now two very important things on this screen that you might want to tweak. Thankfully, this isn't your only chance with either of them, but now's a good time to make sure that they're set just how you want them. The first is the gameplay settings. Now, this has slightly changed since the recent update, so you might want to double check it. Your preferences have probably carried over after the update, but hey, it can't hurt to check. I used to always go here to make sure that I got a free starter apartment because, hey, decorating the apartment is a huge part of gameplay for me personally. And to make sure that I get some starting crows, because again, decorating the apartment on 1,000 crows is a fun little challenge for me. Or we could be broke, but I think I'd choose having that 1,000 crows so that I can have a little bit of fun with it. There's only one setting that I know of that needs to be set now. The rest of them you can tweak once the game is afoot in your new city. If you started with an apartment and plan to go straight into decorating it, turn procedural murders off right now. If you wait on this one until you're in the game, you are still going to get that initial murder or kidnapping. And since I personally always go straight into decorating that starting apartment as soon as I start the game, here's another thing that I do. I turn all the status effects off. This can be done in-game though, so there's no urgency here. Just make sure that if you want a little me time as soon as you start the game, that you have turned those murders off before you finalize your city. You can always turn them right back on as soon as you're ready for them. Mind you, that doesn't do away with having to wait around for them to actually happen. Oh well. But while the starting crows thing is still here in the gameplay settings, the starting apartment thing has moved to the gameplay modifiers. And the modifiers is the big new thing with this update, and you probably don't want to miss those. But here's the starter apartment, which is turned on. For the modifiers, we have the choice of permadeath. Let's see, the permadeath is, well, permadeath. When you go unconscious in-game, it ends. You die and do not recover. The Iron Man mode is you may only use one save slot per new character. Ooh. If permadeath is also enabled, the save slot is deleted when you die. Or film noir, which just makes everything black and white. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Or short-sighted. After a visit to the optician, you now need glasses in your inventory to see properly. If you lose them, your vision will become blurred. Be careful, they can be knocked off in combat or after a fall. Requires depth blur to be enabled. Will set to on upon activation. Or gambling debt. Start with a small fortune in your pocket. I wonder how much that is. Maybe I should play around with that and find out. But in debt to a loan shark. You have to pay it back each day, otherwise you will be hunted and attacked. We can start off on house arrest. If you start with an apartment, or as soon as you acquire one, you will not be legally allowed to leave it. The building's security will treat you as a threat. Interesting. Or the one that I have decided to select for this playthrough, which is Fame and Fortune. You made it. You're a famous detective. But be careful what you wish for. Citizens may stop or even chase you down for a chat or for your autograph. Honestly, I'm kind of torn between the Fame and Fortune and the Snail Nemesis, because this is the first time I've ever seen that in a game. Maybe there's another one out there, and if so, please do let me know about that in the comments, because I'd be interested in it. But, this time around, I think I am going to go with Fame and Fortune. But let's take a look at what Snail Nemesis would be. You are invincible from combat damage aside from contact with a snail. The snail moves toward your current location at all times, even when your case board is open. Inspired by the Immortal Snail concept/meme by Gavin Free. I never knew who came up with that idea, Gavin Free. Well, hats off to you, man. Or we could go with Rat Detective. Up for a challenge, detective? Ditch the trench coat, experience the rat race less figuratively, claw, crawl, and climb your way through the grime. Good luck on that road to retirement, and remember, not many trust a rat. I would not really trust a talking rat that much myself. But anyway, like I said, we're going with Fame and Fortune for this one. See, personally, I'm curious if I can get an NPC to ask for my autograph, and then in the next breath, call me a flatfoot. That'll tickle my sense of humor enormously. Oh, and by the way, you can't have more than one of these on at the same time. As far as I know, you could have every single one of them on if you wanted to. But if you want, say, film noir and gambling debt and house arrest on all at the same time, you're able to do that. So have fun and play around with it. And y'all, please do let me know in the comments which modifier, if any, or which combination you decided to go with. And if you've played with that modifier, what do you think of it so far? Anyway, everybody set? Here comes the city editor. Now, sometimes that loading screen is super fast, sometimes it takes a minute or two. And here we see, a whole lot of ocean. Yay. Lovely, very large city right there. Can't you see it? Must be underwater. Well, fear not, little flurries. All you gotta do is click Generate Map. And you can control the view, or at least sorta. To rotate it, at least on PC, you hold down the middle mouse button. And for most of us on PC, that's gonna be the mouse wheel. For y'all Macs and console peeps, I'm afraid you're gonna have to figure that one out for yourself. Sorry, I just can't help you there. But you can zoom in and out with that same mouse wheel, although sadly you can't pan left and right, which personally drives me a little bit nuts. Because with this huge menu in the way, I just can't get a clear view of the city unless I zoom out a little bit further than I want to. Oh well. Anyway, what you're seeing is what that city seed generated. Because I'm so weirdly neurotic about those blasted city walls, here's where the single city wall falls with this seed, right between these two buildings. But as I'm navigating around the city, it's usually pretty easy to avoid this wall. Because, I don't know about y'all, but I don't often make my way out to these docks. So at least for walls, this is a pretty decent city seed. But with that said, there are a few things that I just don't really like about this layout. So now's a great time to start tweaking them. In order to do that, we'll need to click on Tile Edit, which will let us actually change any of these buildings. So we need to select whatever building we want to change, like this diner, for example. Now this big arrow right here, this is showing you where the entrance to the building is. It's right here along this street. So you might want to give some thought to how the location of the entrances will affect your navigation around the city. And personally, I think I would rather have this entrance somewhere over here, a little bit closer to the center of the city. So now that we've got this selected, we're going to rotate it around all the way. And now the entrance is over here, which will make it a little bit easier to reach when you're coming towards this diner. But you can do a whole lot more than just rotate the buildings. You can completely change what type of building you have. To do that, we go to this pull-down menu right here, and we select a new type. And again, I don't really like where the entrance is, so I'm going to rotate it again to face this way, towards the center of the city. This is now a mixed industrial building, which combines apartments with businesses. Oh, and by the way, that means it's easier to sneak into the businesses at night. So do keep that in mind when you're deciding what building type you want. All right, let's go on to the horribly tedious part. See, I love it when there's those big old neon signs on buildings. But the only way that I can be sure that I'll get them through the city editor is to pick the right building type, and then go one incredibly tedious step further. Now, the building type that comes with those wonderful neon logos is this first apartment tower. So here we go. And I'm going to rotate that around so that I can see very easily whether or not it's got a logo, which this one sadly does not. It's all up to RNG as to whether or not one of these buildings will generate with a neon logo right here. So here comes the tedious. What we need to do to get that logo is to switch between the apartment tower and, well, any other building type. So we're going to go with the first one on the list, the chemical plant. And then we switch right back to apartment tower. And look, this one had it. But annoyingly enough, most of the time, you don't get it the first time you try. Sometimes you'll have to do the same thing over and over again several times before you actually get a logo. But to make it just one step harder on me, there are 4 logos, and I don't want just any logo. What I want is the Starch Cola logo, or as I refer to it, the Nuka-Cola logo. Because in my little world, it ain't Starch Cola, it's Nuka-Cola. See, I am all Fallout all the time. That's what this channel was originally supposed to be about in the first place. Long story. I will get into it some other time, but please do let me know in the comments if what you're actually looking for is a mod-heavy Fallout-centric building channel. I would be delighted to aid you with that. While y'all type out that comment, I'm going to sit here and go back and forth until I can get me my Nuka-Cola. Whew, got it. All right. So I'm going to rotate that around so that the logo is visible from as many directions as possible within the city. Now, doing that just once was pretty tedious, but unfortunately for me, I need to do it 3 more times because I want a different logo visible at each side of the map. 3 more times I gotta do it. Oh. But before we start on that tedious process, and luckily for you guys, I can fast forward through it for you. I just can't fast forward through it for me. We're going to do one more little step here, and that is rename this building to the Nuka-Cola Tower. And of course, this is the tower that I like to get my apartment in, wouldn't you know? All right, with that done, I'm going to get back to it. I'll see y'all after all the fast forwarding. And sometimes it goes fast, and sometimes it's painfully slow.
1 eternity later.
Whew. There we go. Tedium complete. Whew. With that eternity finally out of the way, let's take care of all those other buildings and make sure that we got all the things that we want and all the things that the game demands that we have. And if you want to know a little bit more about that, you might want to take a look at the link at the top right of the video. What is the most basic city that we can generate? Or you can find the link in the description down below. And please be sure to leave a comment with any other questions that you might have about generating cities in Shadows of Doubt. Alrighty, y'all. There is a specific building layout that I'm going to go with, and it's based on 2 main things. First of all, I like to have my city hall as close to the center of the city as I can possibly make it. And I'm going to rotate it so that the entrance is over here, because the entrance to the Nuka-Cola Tower is right here. And if I've got my apartment here, then it'll be a hop, skip, and a jump over to the city hall here, which is pretty handy. Now, the rest of the buildings have been determined mostly because, well, they don't form any walls, other than this one right here that I'm just stuck with that one. But the buildings that I have selected for all these other spots are either because they are required, like this hotel, or this diner, or I've chosen them because they don't form a wall. Like, weirdly enough, these commercial towers. No walls with them. Who knew? But because it's going to be a little bit tedious to watch me plonk all these buildings into place, well, there is going to be a little bit more fast-forwarding going on here. Oh, and in case you ever wondered, you can have multiple city halls in one city. Now, there are 2 different types of townhouses, and I almost always go with this last one down here because this combines businesses and apartments, which, I feel like it's a little bit more interesting that way, to have a business as well. And I figure that a lot of the people who are living in the Fathoms will be working in the chemical plant here, so I have their entrances face to face like that. There we go, building layout for this particular design. And wherever we go in the city, we should be able to see one of these lovely neon logos. And I will always know which building I live in, the Nuka-Cola building. And since our apartment only springs up in an apartment building like these, I will always be able to figure out where my apartment is just based on the logos alone. Like I said, it makes navigation a whole lot easier. Ooh! But before we actually hit finalize, let's take a quick look at the street edit. And incidentally, you do have to move your mouse over here before it'll actually click into the correct view. Otherwise, we can do this, and then the second that we move our mouse over, whoop, it pops back. Oh well. So here's our new city's layout. First we have 2 chemical plants, one here and one here, placed nice and near to the ocean, so that the fumes will drift out to sea instead of into the city, one hopes. Then we have 2 mixed industrial buildings, which might be just as fumy for all I know. Then we have 2 diners on opposite sides of the map so that no matter where you are in the city, you're not that terribly far from a diner. And we have a whopping 4 of the first type of apartment building, aka the Gothic style. And since this is the only style of building in the entire game that has those wonderful neon logos that make it so much easier to navigate by, I've got one on each edge of the map. So on the west we have the Canardews Plaza, then on the north we have the Kensington Indigo Heights, over here on the east we have Kaizen 6 Terrace, and my favorite is down here at the south, the Nuka-Cola Tower, and I will regenerate this map over and over and over again until it spawns me an apartment here in Nuka-Cola Tower, because that's where I want to live, right near City Hall and everything. Then we have one City Hall with its entrance conveniently near my apartment building's entrance, and also as near to the center of the city as I can make it, so that I can reach it as easily as possible from wherever it is that I am when I need it. And not coincidentally, the first of our 2 fathoms is right behind it. and the other one is not too far from his front entrance, just to give those enforcers a little leg up. I mean, I used to be a cop after all, didn't I? Over here we have our one and only hotel, and we could have more of those in the city if we wanted them, but I figure one is plenty. And they do have a lovely view of this park right here. And we have 3 of these big commercial towers, each one conveniently placed right near some respectable housing for some respectable business people. And here we have our nice little, dead little park right beside the city hall, which seems proper somehow, and providing, the closest thing that we've got to a nice view for the hotel. And finally, we have 2 of my favorite type of townhouse, the second type, which has businesses on the bottom floor and apartments on the top floors. And having apartments in the same building means that the businesses will be, easier to break into, because security has to let the residents and their visitors in around the clock. Now, in theory, from the street edit feature, we should be able to make changes to the name of these streets, but, sadly, that just didn't work. Yeah, you can change it within the city editor and it'll pretend to be renamed, but nope. When you actually get into the game, it's just going to be Cho Street again. Sorry. Maybe that'll get fixed one day, but, at least now you know the theory. You click on this button with a little ellipsis, but in practice, maybe eventually they will fix that in some update, but it ain't in this one. Sorry, y'all. Now, within the street editor, one would think that we could do something about these streets or edit them in some form or fashion, but nah, maybe someday. All right, everybody ready? We're finally about to hit finalize so that we can actually see our new apartment and explore our new city. And if you're doing this by yourself without the benefit of my zooming through the video, get ready to find something to do for the next few minutes, because you got time to make yourself a snack. But for those watching this video, I have zoomed right through. Show me our new apartment. Show me our new city. Because not everybody is as obsessed with decorating the apartments as I am. Oops. I'm bound with being the weirdo. I don't know if I'm the only weirdo like that. Y'all let me know in the comments. All right, y'all. I think we might have us a 2-bedroom apartment. Woo! Let's take a quick look around. It is a little bit foggy up in here. Yep, here is our small bedroom. And here is our big main bedroom. And the bedroom has a back door. All right. This is a door onto the landing, which we'll be checking out in a minute, because we want to check out how that whole fame and fortune thing works out. But we have our own little office here, complete with, a slightly tight little desk, and our own little micro cruncher. And of course, our nice little safe. Yeah. And a faintly purplish little kitchen. And I did happen to notice that it's in the Nuka-Cola building. All right. Not bad, not bad. 303 Nuka-Cola Tower. And here is the City Hall. We will come back and play with our new apartment in a future episode, possibly on our next Shadows of Doubt episode, because I do love decorating on a budget in this game. That 1,000 crows might not wind up being our entire budget. More on that sometime soon. Don't forget to lock it. The entire city is a bad neighborhood. But for now, let's go see how the whole fame and fortune modifier treats us. And again, please let me know in the comments which modifier you find most interesting, especially if you've picked it and played around with it already. Nobody has accosted me yet. You're that nosy flatfoot. All right. I guess this is the fame and fortune thing. Yeah, that's me. Nora's gonna be so jealous I met you. The nosy flatfoot. All right. Well, that does kind of tickle my funny bone. Huh. Who knew? Oh yeah, this could indeed get annoying. You're that nosy flatfoot. All right. Flatfoot flew with the floy. Can't wait to tell Jose about this. All right, well, how long is it going to take me to get to the city hall this way? Thankfully, I should be able to turn off that modifier anytime I need to. But here we are. Nice quick little trek to City Hall. Yep, I am that nosy flatfoot. Yeah, this will get annoying. Ooh. You're you're that private detective everyone's talking about. Well, I feel so special. You didn't call me Flatfoot, although I actually kind of like Flatfoot. Well, that's a pretty heavy dose of what the fame and fortune modifier is like. As far as I can tell, it's all downside and no actual upside. No fortune, the occasional murderer stalker, and it doesn't even make him any more eager to answer your nosy Flatfoot questions. I might switch to Snail Nemesis for the next time, although not while I'm decorating. Well, if you're enjoying our Shadows of Doubt adventure, and especially if you love games with some sort of building or decorating emphasis, please subscribe so that you don't miss out on anything. And so that you can find out what they call me, other than a Flatfoot or whatever kind of detective this guy just called me. Please subscribe so that you don't miss out on anything, because that's what we do here. I'll see y'all in the next episode. Bye.